Happy Thanksgiving, New City Church. If you're with someone else, take a moment, and even if you've already done this, wish them a happy Thanksgiving. We're going to turn in our Bibles to Matthew chapter 13, and I'm going to read this passage, very brief passage to you, and then just talk for a couple of minutes with you. Beginning in verse 31, Jesus told them another parable. He said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it's the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches." A mustard seed is about 2 millimeters in diameter, just a speck in your hand. But it grows into a 9-foot tree in its very first year. Scientists tell us that mustard seeds have anti-cancer, antibacterial, antifungal, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory qualities. Not only are they good for you, but every true Chicagoan will argue for yellow mustard on a hot dog, although I'm not sure who gets to decide such things. But whether you prefer the yellow mustard or its bougier brown mustard cousin, it all starts as that small mustard seed. And Jesus said, faith is just like this. You plant the seed, and it's so small that it's almost invisible. So just remember today, wherever you're coming from, faith starts out small. In 1963, archaeologists were excavating one of Herod the Great's palaces at a place called Masada. And those archaeologists, they found all the normal things, artifacts, skeletal remains, but one curious find was a sealed jar with seeds inside. Now, those seeds were carbon dated to between 155 BC and 64 AD, around the time of Christ. Researchers found that these particular seeds were from an extinct species of tree called the Judean date palm. So, it's 1963. These seeds are put in storage at a university. And then, decades later, in 2005, 3 of those seeds are planted. And one of them, amazingly, germinates, and they name it Methuselah. Within 3 years, that seed has grown to a 5-foot tree, and 3 years after that, it flowers for the first time. So now, by 2015, that small seed has grown into a 10-foot tall, pollen-producing Judean date palm. It's been germinating for over 20 centuries, but it still bore fruit. I want you to think about that. Faith doesn't just start out small. Many times it starts out slow. So you'd ask yourself, well, why do we plant the seed in the first place then? Most of us would say we want to get the tree and we want to get the fruit from the tree. But Jesus says that there is a "so that" has nothing to do with the intent of the farmer or the sower. He says, so that the birds of the air can make a nest in the branches of that tree. So watch this. This is the last thing I want to share with you. Faith doesn't just start out small. It doesn't just start out slow. Faith has a "so that." When we give thanks on a day like today, we're acknowledging that we're not taking credit for the gifts and the blessings in our lives. We can't take credit for the gifts and the blessings in our lives. We're giving thanks because we're perched in the branches of God's goodness and His kindness. We're perched in the branches of the prayers and the sacrifice of others, seeds that were sown weeks, years, or even generations ago. You have a reason to be thankful today. The gifts that you enjoy, the blessings you enjoy today, oftentimes they're the result of someone else's sowing. You become someone else's "so that." Now, God's goodness and gifts, it's true, they don't take away from the sorrow or the loss that we experience. The sting from those losses remains. But it's also true, and probably more true, that sorrow and loss cannot take away from God's goodness and gifts. And in the end, God causes all things to work together for good for them who love Him and who are called according to His purpose. So acknowledging that today, giving thanks for that today, reminds me of that same principle in operation in my life. Whatever God is doing in and through me is not just for me. And I want to say this, what if what God is doing in and through you is not just for you? You don't give sacrificially for yourself. You don't forgive for yourself. You don't love for yourself. You You don't serve in New City Kids for yourself. You don't plant churches for yourself. You plant seeds, and you trust that though your seed might be small, it's going to grow. And you trust, even though it might take time, it will bear fruit. And you trust that even though you might not know exactly how, God is calling you to sow seeds so that others will be blessed. So give thanks today. God has blessed you through the faith of others. Not only does God bless you, but He uses you to bless others. And all that He asks is that we plant a 2-millimeter seed of faith so that we can become a source of thanks and praise for others. Listen, we're saving you a seat at the table this Sunday. We're going to share communion together. We're going to wrap up our Joyful series, and then every weekend in December after this is going to be a warm, fun, and festive celebration of Christmas. And so I expect to see you soon. But for now, happy Thanksgiving.